Hello, I'm Shauna Mohammed, a proud Sayeret teen from Brooklyn, and I'm here to introduce our next keynote speaker. Dalia Ziada is a prominent Egyptian writer, human rights, and peace activist celebrated for her unwavering commitment to freedom, democracy, and gender equality in the Middle East. She has been at the forefront of advocating for women's rights and promoting liberal values within Egyptian society. Ms. Ziada gained her international recognition for her courage in condemning Hamas's October 7th attacks on Israeli civilians and supporting Israel's military response. Her bold stance forced her in November 2023 to flee Egypt for her safety, underscoring the personal risks she faces in her fight for justice. Her activism spans a diverse range of efforts, including her work with American Islamic Congress, where she championed civil rights education and fostered interfaith understanding. Ms. Ziada has also played a critical role during Egypt's political transitions, running for parliament and leading think tanks focused on democratic reform. Her scholarly contributions include numerous papers on Eastern Mediterranean geopolitics, which further solidify her reputation as a thought leader in the region. Now based in the United States, Dalia continues her advocacy focused on bridging cultural divides, challenging radical Islamist ideologies, and crafting policy solutions that promote peace and democracy. As a published author, she writes extensively on the civil liberties and social justices, inspiring countless individuals with her vision for a more equitable world. Her story is one of resilience and dedication to universal human rights, making her a beacon of hope and progress. We're so honored to have you. Everyone, please welcome Dalia Ziada.
أهلاً وسهلاً, welcome to the balagan that we call the Middle East. יש הכל, רק תבחר מה לאכול ותזהר שלא תקבל פה ביס.
There's room for everybody.
יש מקום לכל אחד.
It's time for lovey-dovey.
רק שלא תגמור לבד.
What a moment, being here speaking after this big event that happened today, the release of the hostages. The first 3 hostages and many more to come, inshallah, means a lot to me. Not just because I'm with you here today, because this is really a moment that's worth celebration, but it's also because it somehow proved to me that I was on the right side of history when I decided to side with Israel and the Israeli people in this war. Despite all the trouble that I had to suffer as a consequence of that, actually someone on the first day we were here asked me, like, would you, if time goes back, would you do exactly the same thing? Would you still say you support Israel in this war? And I said, absolutely, yes, no question, I'll do that. And today we are just reminded that we are winning. It's Hamas, Hamas is now celebrating their fake illusionary victory. They are trying to make themselves the winners of this war, but actually they are not. They are the biggest losers. And we are the ones who won. And when I say we, it's not only Israel, but even people like me who identify as liberal Muslims, reformist Muslims, who has been fighting against these terrorists for so long. However, let me tell you something. I was not like this all my life. Actually, at one moment in my life, for the first 18 years of my life, I was just a brainwashed young girl in Cairo. Just like everyone else, I go to the mosque and I hear the sheikh or the imam cursing the Jews in every Friday prayer, and I just repeat after him. I watch our media stations and they are telling us that Israel is our historical enemy. Every year we used to celebrate the October 7, we call it October 7, but October 6, which is the 1973 war with Israel, as a victory for Egypt, which later I found out that this was not the case. But every year we used to celebrate that, the anniversary of this war, and never, even once in my life, and I was born after the peace treaty with Israel was signed, not even once I saw them celebrating the anniversary of the peace treaty. So growing up in this environment, primed me somehow to be just similar to the useful idiots that you are seeing now protesting on American campuses and Western campuses. And actually, in my first year in university, I was 18 years old, a fresh woman or a fresh man student at that time. It was the time of the second Intifada. And just like what you're seeing right now around you in the United States, also in Cairo at that time, all the campuses were crazy about the second Intifada, protests happening every day. The footage, Al Jazeera was quite new at that time, Al Jazeera TV, and they were showering us with footage from what's happening in Gaza. Of course, very biased, not telling the truth at all. And when you walk at your campus, you will just see the Palestinian flag everywhere. Everyone is putting on the kufiya. They are very proud of it. It has become something cool to put on the kufiya and walk around. And then one day, one beautiful sunny day, like most of the days in Cairo, something extraordinary happened to me. Finally, something happened and pushed me out of the ideological box I was stuck into for the first 18 years of my life. The people organizing the protests, which I have been joining for about 2 months at that time, they decided to burn some flags. So they started by burning the Israeli flag, which made sense because the protest is against Israel. Then they burned the American flag, which for me was a big question mark. Like, why would burning a flag of a country that exists tens of thousands of miles away would help the situation in Gaza or help the Palestinians? And then, just shortly after, they burned my own flag, the Egyptian flag. This was the moment I felt something wrong is happening. These cannot be good people, and at the same time burn my own flag. Something wrong is happening. I took a step back. I got out of the protests, and thank God I never went back. And I decided to educate myself. And it made the whole difference in my life. I started studying about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I started studying about Judaism and the Jewish people, whom for my whole life was something, obscure, something vague. I didn't know who they are. And then I found out that actually there were Egyptian Jews. Imagine, I was 18 years old. And this was my first time to learn that there were Egyptian Jews. And they were in our movies, in our cinema industry, everywhere. They were Egyptians. And then when I learned this history, since that time, it has become my mission to fight against radical Islamism, the Muslim Brotherhood, and similar group ranging from, political Islamists up to jihadist Islamists, like the terrorist organizations of Al-Qaeda and ISIS that we are seeing today. And also, since then, it has become my mission to create or open channels of people-to-people dialogue between Arabs and Israelis and between Muslims and Jews. And I had a great journey since then. Ups and downs. I worked in several organizations, NGOs here in the US and also back in the region. I made great friends from Israel. It was fun. Yes, we had moments of despair, moments of disappointment, especially during the time of the Arab Spring and the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood to the top of power in Egypt. For those of you who don't know what the Arab Spring is, it's a number of revolutions that took place in the year 2010 and 2011. And I was a young woman at that time, and I participated in these protests as one of the leaders of the Egyptian revolution. And then we were surprised that the Muslim Brotherhood took power. And after they took power, Hamas, the terrorist organization, Hamas, infiltrated into Egypt, infiltrated into Sinai. And they started to form small terrorist organizations at the beginning in the Sinai Peninsula. And then these small terrorist organizations paid allegiance to Daesh, ISIS, later on. And later on, I mean 2 years after they were formed, not long time. Only 2 years after they were formed, they became Daesh, they became ISIS, and started to kill the Egyptian soldiers and the Egyptian people. At this time, something really, really interesting happened that posted my work for Arab-Israeli dialogue and Muslim-Jewish dialogue. This thing is that the Egyptian leadership at that time, and I'm speaking particularly about the Minister of Defense at that time, who's now the President of Egypt, President El-Sisi, Abdel Fattah El-Sisi. When he was the Minister of Defense at that time, he needed to send troops closer to the border with Israel, with Gaza, in order to stop Hamas from infiltrating into Israel. He went and spoke to his Israeli counterparts in the IDF and asked them just to make amendments on the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel so the troops can get closer. You know what Israel's response was? They didn't say no. They didn't say, no, you can get closer to the border, or no, let's get a third party to mediate between us and make new provisions. No. They did not only say, yes, come closer to the border, to Egypt, but even they said, we will help you in this fight. And in a matter of few months, the Egyptian troops and the Israeli troops were fighting together, side by side, in Sinai against Hamas. This was in the year 2015. This was an extraordinary moment for me personally and for the relationship between Egypt and Israel. And since then, the relationship economically, military, security, and on all levels started to improve. My work on Arab-Israeli dialogue, Egyptian-Israeli dialogue, Muslim-Jewish dialogue has also improved until something really, really sad happened in the year 2023. Something we did not expect, we did not see coming, but we should have accounted for, of course, all of us. This thing is the October 7 attack by Hamas. Hamas took everyone by surprise because we were at an important moment in the region, thinking that the Abraham Accords are succeeding. And me personally, I was believing that Egypt finally is having warm peace with Israel, and we are over the era of cold peace and strategic agreements and this stuff. And then October 7 happened. And it did not only affect the Israeli people, but it also affected people like me, the people who called for peace. We are the ones who are now paying the price. Ironically, we are the ones who are now paying the price for what happened on October 7, while the radicals who exist in our countries or in Gaza or elsewhere are the ones who are enjoying their life there and taking our place. When October 7 happened, I was leading a think tank in Egypt, and it was normal to be invited from time to time on the media, in the Arab media, to comment on the geopolitical affairs. And they just invited me 2 weeks after October 7 happened, and of course at that time also the war in Gaza should have started. And they invited me, of course, to curse Israel, to say Israel is so bad and Hamas are just heroes defending their land and all this nonsense that was being said in our media and is still being said in our media. And I appeared on the TV and I just said, Hamas is a terrorist organization. What they did on October 7 is a terrorist attack, and nothing in the world can justify what they did. And Israel is doing the right thing by defending itself. Thank you. Thank you. So imagine saying these words to an Arab audience. Of course, some people thought I was crazy at that time. I should have gone, with the mainstream and just play it for the mainstream, but no. It is only in these moments, either you say the truth or you fail forever. I knew that I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror after the videos I watched of what happened on October 7 and just accept that I didn't stand up for these innocent civilians who were taken from their homes, who were raped, who were killed, who were tortured, who were brutalized in a very unacceptable way. So I was compelled to do this. I did what I had to do. Of course, this stirred a terrible backlash against me. It started first by death threats coming my way, and then coming on my phone, coming on my social media, a lot of insults, of course. I thought, okay, it's only a matter of days and it will go away, but unfortunately it didn't. As 3 days later, I found a group of radical Islamists, we call them the Salafists. They adopt similar radical ideology similar to the Al-Qaeda and ISIS and these groups. They went to my family house looking for me. They wanted to punish me for being on the side of the Jews, which, by the way, is considered in Islam somehow is a sin. Like, being friends with the Jews or allied with the Jews, it's something that should be punished. So in their ideologies, he wanted to punish me. But this was not the shocking part, actually. The shocking part for me, thank God I was not in my family house at that time. I was in my apartment in another neighborhood. The shocking part for me was when I contacted the security authorities in Egypt to tell them that my life is in danger. I need your protection. And I expected, we have peace treaty with Israel. Egypt has peace treaty with Israel. And I expected they will jump immediately. And Egypt also hates Hamas, supposedly, because they hurt us in our recent history, not long time ago. So I expected they will be supporting me. Unfortunately, the senior officer I spoke to, he said to me, we are not going to protect you. And when I asked why, he said, because you said you support Israel. This is the hypocrisy the Arab countries and my home country, Egypt, has been practicing for so long. On one side, they are willing to cooperate with Israel if it benefits them. They can call Hamas and such terrorist organizations terrorists if they attack them, but if they attack Israel, they are heroes. And it has become my mission now, actually, to make sure that this will not happen again. October 7 will not happen again. And this hypocrisy has to come to an end. Either to be friends with Israel, either to accept Israel as Arab countries, or just suffer the consequences. Because the security of Israel is the security of the Middle East. The security of Israel, thank you. Even actually on a bigger level, the security of Israel is the security of the United States and the Western world, because Israel, as small as it is in the region, it represents the Western values of democracy, human rights, women's rights that none of us in the region have ever enjoyed. That's why I support Israel. That's why, although I am a Muslim, I am an Arab, another reason why I support you guys is that actually I'm so impressed by your history. I was speaking earlier today with my new friend here about how resilient the Jewish people are over their history. You've survived a lot of persecution by so many people in different places in the world, and you're still going on. And you're not only surviving, you're also thriving, which is something I want to keep it in your heart and mind going forward from here, is that just focus on thriving. Nothing will stop you. Nothing stopped your predecessors, and nothing will stop you as well. So thank you so much for having me with you for these 3 days. I enjoyed being with every one of you. Thank you. Thank you. And we will continue this fight together, and I'm 100% sure we will win. Thank you. So, any questions? Yes.
Blind eye, essentially, to what is happening. He is definitely an opponent of the Muslim Brotherhood, from which Hamas sprung. So why is he allowing this in his country?
Actually, at the beginning, I think he was playing, he and the regime in Egypt and the whole government, they were playing for the domestic audience. In Egypt, the people are so brainwashed with this so-called Palestinian cause. For decades, we have been educated that this is the central issue in the region, and if it is resolved, everyone will be happy, will be stable, and so. And as you know, people were using, like the government was using this to distract the people from their domestic problems, from their internal problems. So this was one thing. So at the beginning, he was playing for the domestic audience. It went too far. And I think now, because of the situation in Syria and the rise of the jihadists there, and at the same time, the threats coming from Libya, I don't know, I can see now they're starting to change their policy that was totally wrong, to become more open to, once again, to Europe rather than Turkey, more willing to fight against radical Islamist groups rather than cooperating with them. But one thing I know for sure is that Egypt lost a big deal of its regional role when it decided to side with Hamas instead of siding with Israel, of course. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So where to start? Here? Yeah.
What do you think the estimate of how many Arabs there are in Arab Muslim countries that like don't support their governments and like that are like you? How many people?
Many.
Like, what is the estimate?
Many. I was actually on my way out of Egypt when I had to leave, because of course part of it is that a number of legal claims were filed against me, accusing me of threatening national security, spying for the Israeli Mossad, inciting war crimes in Gaza, and a long list of accusations. So I had to leave. So on my way out, yes, I was receiving death threats, but at the same time, I was receiving messages of encouragement and support from young Egyptians and young Arab people who are saying to me, you're doing the right thing. We wish we can do the same as you do, but we're just scared. So they do exist, but they don't have a voice. They are scared. They don't want to pay for the consequences of speaking up in such a very unhealthy environment.
Do you think there might be hope of change for that?
I think so. Actually, especially with the ceasefire happening and things de-escalating, I think the good voices now will find the space to appear, you know? Thank you, Margot. Yeah. Oops.
Sorry, it's too tall for me. Hi, I'm Kiana from the Los Angeles chapter, and in your experience of having preached to Muslims about the ideals of Israel, have you ever been able to get through to a radical Islamist, or what's usually the reaction? Have you ever done so, and if you did, what measures did you take?
Oh yes, I come from Egypt, and I was very involved in politics in Egypt, so I had direct face-to-face fights with radical Islamist groups like the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, for example. The Muslim Brotherhood, if you don't know, they are the parent organization of Hamas. It's the organization from which Hamas came. So yes, I've been in direct clashes, political clashes with them. And I knew many of them. We had a lot of debates about these issues. And I remember after the Arab Spring, actually, we had a big debate. It was watched by millions of people at that time and moderated by a famous British debate moderator at that time. And we just discussed this issue, the relationship with Israel. And on the other side from me was one from the members of the Muslim Brotherhood. And we had a strong debate about it. And at the end, I won the debate. The majority of the audience in the room supported my point of view, which is simply, okay, even if you look at it for just pure pragmatic reasons, Egypt and Israel are so interdependent economically, security-wise, and etc. And the same thing applies to Jordan. And not only Jordan and Egypt as the immediate neighbors of Israel, but also to the Arab Gulf region and to the North Africa. So this was my point, and I think this is an argument that no one can disagree with. However, the dangerous part about Islamists is that they are trying to Islamize the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They are turning it from a territorial conflict or even an Arab-Israel conflict into a more dangerous form of a religious conflict, as if all Muslims have to be enemies to all Jews, which does not make any sense. So I hope
Thank
this
you.
answers you. Thank you. Please.
Hello, My name is Ashrat. I'm from the LA chapter. I just wanted to ask you, how did your family or close friends react to you coming out as a pro-Israel activist?
Unfortunately, my family were not very supportive at all. If my father was still alive, I think he would have been supportive to me. He's actually, maybe I told this on the first day when we spoke, he named me after a Jewish girl already. So he was tolerant, and he was a military officer. When you think about it, like, this is a piece of moment that we had, and we lost, unfortunately, after that. So if he was alive, he was going to be supportive. But for the rest of my family, unfortunately, they are not. As soon as this happened, 2 of my aunts disowned me. My mother did not speak to me for months. And even my siblings, I'm not in proper communication with them, like in good terms with them now, except for one who's still in communication with me. So it's a bit tough. But let me tell you something. When I came here, I thought I lost everything. I lost my family. I lost even my properties, like physical properties and so. But I found a new family here. Once I arrived in Washington, the Jewish people, the Jewish community there, they didn't know me. They just read about me in the news. They came to my door and they said, "We're here to help you. We're here to support you." Since then, they became my chosen family. I call them my chosen family, and I'm so, so grateful for them for doing this to me. Otherwise, I could have been devastated now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi. Oh, sorry, that was really loud. So my name is Rebecca, and I'm from the Livingston chapter. I just had a question. Did you ever struggle with your faith when you first started learning about like the history of Israel and like how like everything went down, kind of?
Thank you for this very brave question. But yes, I've always struggled with it. And actually, we had a very interesting discussion about this on dinner last night with some of you. The issue is that in Islam, and I think this is what we should blame, how we were brought up as Muslims. We should blame, jihadism, this Islamism, radicalism that's happening worldwide, to how we were brought up as Muslims. It's true, the mosques and imams and sheikhs in Egypt, in Syria, in certain countries, they are not preaching people to practice jihad, but they are priming people to be jihadists later on if they want to. It makes it easy for them to be jihadists. And one thing why this is happening, because as young Muslims, we have been always instructed not to ask questions. Unlike in Judaism, they encourage you to debate, to ask questions, to debate the Torah, to debate the teachings you receive, to debate everything until you are fully convinced of what you're doing. This is not the case in Islam. In Islam, all the instruction is that take what we are giving you. We know better than you. Never ask questions. And if you ask questions, you're not a good Muslim. And to be honest, I struggled with this for a very long time. And it was just the idea of asking questions was a challenge for me, until finally I decided to learn. I decided just forget about everyone, forget about all the authorities. I will be my own authority, and I will open my eyes to see what I want to see and eventually choose where to go. So yes, it's a struggle, and I'm sure I'm not the only one struggling with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm from Los Angeles. I have a lot of Muslim friends who I debate with, and even when I win the debate, they still say they support Palestine because they're Muslim and it's their Muslim brothers and sisters, or it's their people.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, when someone comes to you and says, how can you support Israel? You're betraying Islam, the Muslim people. How do you combat that? How do you answer that?
They say this all the time, unfortunately, but I believe a good Muslim should not be hating anyone, should not be practicing anti-Semitism. As a good Muslim, I should be respecting everyone. And above all, Not because I am a Muslim, I should go and kill the Jews. This does not make any sense. Even if there are some holy texts that support that in my religion, I will just discard them. I will ignore them. I will not follow them. Because I believe we all belong to the same human family. And if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. I'll never do that, So let them say whatever say. I'm not betraying anyone. I'll be betraying my humanity if I follow them,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So I'd first like to thank you for your speech. It was very eye-opening.
Thank you.
So my question is, what do you hope, as a Muslim woman, what do you hope to see happen to women and the current status of women's rights in the Middle East at the moment?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. Women's rights is a big challenge in the Middle East, and it's not only because of Islam, because this is the dominant religion in the region, but also because of the teachings itself. Most of the Arab communities, as you know, come from tribal backgrounds. And in these tribal backgrounds, women were not empowered in any way. They were just, objects to be used by men for bleeding them or for serving them or so. So unfortunately, this mentality still exists, even in countries that are not tribal, does not have a tribal history like Egypt. They still also adopt this mentality, and they always see women as less than men. Islam, or the religion as a component, of course, added to this, made it more complicated, made it more difficult, because it's somehow justifying the mistreatment of women by the society. So I believe this is the dangerous part. In Egypt, before I had to leave, I was working on the board of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the National Council for Women. It's like a national council that works on women's rights, and this was one of the things I was working on. Education not only for men about women's rights, but also education that empowers women to call for their rights and stand up for it. But let me be honest with you, still have a long way to go to make this happen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi. So
Dan.
you posed a less optimistic view of the Arab world since October 7th. And I wanted to ask, kind of in contrast, because I know that when Rowan was speaking, she told us that we were closer to peace after October 7th than we were before. And I want to ask you if you feel the same way.
100%, I back her words 100%. Yeah, I can see it. Peace is coming, but which type of peace are we talking about? If we are looking from the very narrow window of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, forget about it. If we are looking at the bigger picture of Arab-Israeli peace, yes, 100% this is happening. This has been already happening for about 4 years now, and will continue to happen. We only had a temporary pause forced by October 7th. But if you remember, since 2020, we had the Abraham Accords. Now Saudi Arabia wants to join the Abraham Accords. The Trump administration is coming in, and as you know, Trump is very popular in the Middle East. So the leaders there love him, love his style of work. So actually, this will facilitate maybe better relationships with Israel. So on the bigger picture, yes, peace is happening. Peace is going to happen. However, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will still an issue. Actually, even with the ceasefire that's happening today, the hostage deal, and so I'm still not very optimistic about it because I have zero trust for Hamas, and also because something I want to point to bring your attention to, this idea of ceasefire and jihad. Jihadists don't believe in ceasefire. When you and I say ceasefire, we think about peace. We think about living together, coexistence. But this is not what the jihadists are thinking about. There is no ceasefire in jihad. For them, ceasefire is hudna. It's just, let's stop war for a while so we can rearm, regroup, and come back and kill you. And they have been doing this yesterday. The first thing Hamas did yesterday, Hamas, and I'm very, very sorry to say, the people of Gaza, they were having a parade just a few hours after the ceasefire started. And in the parade, they were shouting the famous slogan, "Khaybar, Khaybar, ya Yahud, Jaish Muhammad sawfa yaud." O Khaybar, Khaybar, O Jews, the army of Prophet Muhammad will come back, of course, to kill you. Come back to do what? Come back to kill you. So this is what they are planning to do. So there is no ceasefire in jihad. If these terrorist organizations remain in power, no peace is going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for, showing the peace that's possible, as you said, like as a moderate Muslim. So I wanted to ask, what do you think the path is for having more moderate Muslim voices in support of Israel, like even more?
Oh, that's a very good question. But I think actually, thank you for asking this, because I think you guys, like literally you, not the West, not the US, but you, the young people who exist in this room, have a role to do in this. It's simply to amplify the voices of the good people. They exist. Some of them are shyly posting on social media here and there. They are waiting for posts to be picked up by audience. So help them amplify their voices, help them speak up, help them to be the louder voices in contrast to the crowd that is now dominating the narrative about the Middle East. Actually, on our first day here, Rawan and I went shopping in somewhere nearby, and we met a Lebanese guy in the shop. And surprisingly, Rawan, he was supportive of Israel. He was supportive of Netanyahu, and he was just saying, oh, only if Netanyahu keeps, just one more step, if the IDF keeps fighting, so they help us get rid of Hezbollah. Imagine, these people do exist. So just let's help amplify their voices, that's all.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Eitan from Charlotte. My question is, how do you fight against people who believe that Islam is rooted and represented by these extremist radical beliefs?
They, of course, because they are the louder voices among Muslims right now are not liberal Muslims, are the extremist ones. And the problem is that moderate Muslims or reformist Muslims like myself or liberal ones like myself, we practice our religion individually. We don't go and ask other moderate Muslims to get organized in groups with us. This does not happen. But we practice our religion individually. However, the extremists, either political Islamists or jihadists or so, they are very well funded, very well organized. They have a lot of power. They have violence, the power of practicing violence, and they have louder voices, and they have supporters like Turkey, Qatar, and other countries, like big supporters. So that's why they are louder. However, I believe the majority are the moderates, not the opposite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jacob. I'm from the Brooklyn chapter. I have to ask, when you were a child, you said that you were brainwashed. So what was the propaganda like in Egypt when you were a child?
It's everywhere. It surrounds you from everywhere, on TV, in the textbook. I can tell you actually one small story very quickly. As a primary school student, we used to study a lesson in the Arabic class about the October 6 war, the 1973 war. And then after attending this class, they take us to a museum in Cairo. And this museum is dedicated for the 1973 war, showing statues of Israeli soldiers defeated, some things captured from the war like tanks and weapons and so. So imagine growing up like this, So I believe the biggest problem is that they did not celebrate peace in Egypt as much as they celebrated the anniversary of the war. So this is the type of propaganda we're talking about, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Georgia, I'm from Charlotte. So my question is, do you think that the hate and the brainwashing that's inflicted by the radical Islamist from on the youth and other people, like the more moderates, even potential moderates from a very young age, is sort of like coloring the theme of like more people would support Israel and love Israel if they weren't so brainwashed, but now there's kind of this general group think that, you know, everyone or most or a good amount of Muslims are taught to hate Israel.
It's both. Like it's one side of it is that people are brainwashed by Islamists, like, you know, by the Islamic values, claiming that, you know, if you're a good Muslim, you have to be against Israel, against the Jews, and so. But also another dimension of it is a communist ideology, the leftist socialist communist ideology, which I'm not how many of you are familiar with the term communist, but this is an ideology that views the West as an imperialist power that should not, that its goal is to destroy our Eastern civilization. So of course they always have this hatred towards the West, and they have seen Israel as an agent to this Western imperialist power. So part of it has to do with the radical Islamists, that's true, but another part has to do with this extremist leftist ideology, which unfortunately is gaining traction in the US right now as well, sadly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Of course. Yeah, I'm sorry, Masha. I know I have just only three more, and we're done. Yeah, one, two, very quickly. Yeah, very, very quickly. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kate from the Brooklyn chapter, and I wanted to ask, what's your advice to speaking to radical Islamists?
You don't speak to them.
But like in general, like what? How?
Yeah, but actually the best thing is don't go speak to them, but because they will not listen to you, they are so blinded. The trick is to go and find the moderate ones and amplify their voices. This way, these radical Islamists will lose their power. This is my only advice, but don't go and speak to them, no. Thank you. Yeah, Margot?
Hello, I'm Margot. I'm from Boston. This is a little uncomfortable, but basically, why, like, after finding out everything that you learned about, like, Islam, that they don't, you know, let you ask questions, or, like, the way that it kind of perpetuates and, you know, women not really being treated super highly and whatnot, what made you, like, still stay in the religion and connect with the religion and not leave? Because I know I've seen many Muslims on the internet that were just like,
that's true, but the thing is that I cannot live without a religion. And the religion I know so far is Islam. I've not been educated on other religions appropriately in a way that can make me adopt this religion. And the thing is that at one moment when I just found my own path, I decided to have my own version of the religion. I'm not taking it from a sheikh who is just transferring his perception to me, but I made my own religion. I call it Dalia's Islam, Dalia's version of Islam. Yeah. Wherein I bought all the teachings that I love, and I just discard all the things that I don't like. And my criteria for that is the things that conform with my humanitarian values. So, yeah, thank you, Margaret. Yeah. Our last question, yeah?
Hi, I'm Karen from the Brooklyn chapter. So first I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to speak to us. And also I wanted...
Thank you.
And also I wanted to ask, were you able to leave freely from Egypt, or did you have to escape and find a plan to actually get out?
I kind of escaped. Actually, I remember when I found like I'm trapped. I remember it was the scariest night of my life. I had to turn off all the lights in my apartment so nobody knows I'm inside. Can you imagine how scary it was? So I just texted all the friends I know worldwide. And I was lucky that I studied here in the US and I worked here for a number of years in the past with the American Islamic Congress. So I had friends here. They were amazing. They responded very quickly and they were able to evacuate me from Egypt in 5 hours. And this was miraculous, and several people were involved. Of course, I cannot mention them, but some of them are very powerful people in Washington. And I'm so, so grateful that this happened, because otherwise I could have been in jail now or perhaps killed by some extremist, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much for the great 3 days I had with you. Thank you.